As Jesus stood on the crest of the Mount of Olives, looking over Jerusalem, his heart was filled with anguish and pain. Looking with divine foresight into the future, he could see the Jewish people scattered around the globe, the city lying in ruins, the temple burning, destroyed, and laid to waste. Crying out with a pain-filled heart, he said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often I would have gathered you as a hen gathers her chicks, but you would not." John 1 verse 11 says, "He came to his own, but his own did not receive him." After ministering for over 3 years in Jerusalem and the surrounding areas, Jesus' time on earth was coming to a close when he uttered his fateful pronouncement and warning on Jerusalem. The temple that Jesus looked down upon as he stood on Mount Olives was the second permanent structure to stand in that place. Originally, as the Israelites left Egypt, they had a temporary tent that traveled with them, and even after they got to Israel, it stood there in Shiloh and was used for 300 years. Eventually, the first temple was completed during the reign of King Solomon in 957 BC. This temple was destroyed by the Babylonians in 587 BC, and many of the vessels were carried from Jerusalem over to Babylon. After the 70 years of captivity, as prophesied by the prophet Jeremiah, the Israelites were allowed to return during the reign of the Medes and Persians under King Cyrus. This temple began to be rebuilt in 538 or 537 BC after the decree of Cyrus for the Jews to return to Jerusalem. Then they encountered some local opposition which caused some delays before it was completed in 515 BC. This temple stood for over 500 years, and it was the one that Jesus visited, spoke in as a child, ministered as an adult, and wept and cried over before he was crucified. Sometimes called Zerubbabel's temple because he was the one who started the reconstruction, it was later renovated and expanded on during the time of Herod. Jesus said in Matthew 24 verse 15 and 16 that when you see the abomination of desolation stand in the holy place, let him which is in Judea flee into the mountains. When the Roman armies first came in AD 66 under the leadership of Cestius, who was the governor of Syria at the time, and planted his armies and insignia outside the walls of Jerusalem, this was still considered holy land as it extended several furlongs from the temple. He was unable to take the Temple Mount and retreated, losing over 5,000 soldiers in the process, according to Josephus. As the armies retreated, this was a sign for God's people to flee the city, and all those who heeded the words of Jesus in Matthew 24 did. They had a small window of time whilst the Romans were fighting the Jews, and they escaped to the city of Pella, located in modern-day Jordan, across the other side of the River Jordan. All those who were watching the signs escaped the later destruction. This apparent victory over Cestius emboldened the Jews with a stubbornness that would work against them 4 years later, when in AD 70, under the leadership of Titus, the Roman armies returned. Surrounding the city during the time of Passover, when it was teeming with people, only further increased the horror that was about to come. Starvation, famine, and disease quickly spread throughout the city. The natural love of children to parents to grandparents disappeared as everyone fought for their own survival. Those who tried to escape the city were captured and crucified in the walls outside until the valleys were teeming with crosses as a warning to those inside not to try and escape. Eventually the city was stormed, and even though Titus told his soldiers not to destroy the temple and personally tried to stop it even when the fire had started, the prophecy of Jesus said that not one stone would be left upon another, and this came to pass. Jesus also warned our world today of the coming crisis, and he has given us an outline of the signs of his return, that we're not left in darkness. He does not want anyone to be lost, and he's outlined exactly what will take place before he comes back, that we will know exactly the signs of his return. We can rest assured that just like no true believers were killed in the destruction of Jerusalem, so today those of us who are watching the signs will not be destroyed, but Jesus will protect us in the final days of this earth's history.